Welcome to the Build Different podcast with David Weiss, myself, Sam Weiss, and today Charles Cozad is joining us. Did I say that right?
You did. You got it right.
Good.
First try.
Yes. I'll let David introduce Charles a little bit more. He's the one, they work together now. So David, I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, so Charles, I met Charles at work. We both work at the same AI startup, Pallium, and we've been talking a lot about building. Well, obviously we're in tech. We're doing software engineering. We're building AI software, and Charles has 20 plus years experience in that space. He's done it all, multiple startups, different.
Lots of opinions on what's right and right.
We like opinions here.
We like opinions. He just has a great experience. And as I've gotten to work with it, I think we've only been working together like 2 months now or something like that. It feels like long.
Just a drop in the bucket of time, but it's been good.
Yeah. But it was enough. It's enough for me to know what a stellar engineer and person Charles is. And so one day we were at work and I'm like, hey, let's jump on the podcast together. That would be awesome. And he's like, I have something to say about building things simply. And I'm like, that's perfect. We can talk about this. We've had a couple podcasts around business and technology type things. And so this will be one of those. And, that's the intro. What did I miss, Charles? What else would you...
That's as much as I want to say. I don't want my head to explode here. I want to talk shop and not talk about me. So,
okay, fair enough. So to start off, what have you learned about building different? What have you noticed comparing the norm with like the ideal and the tension there? Tell us about what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that like some of them is like vendor literature. Like you get like a vendor rep who really wants to like pump you up to make things maybe a little more complicated than they need to be. I think people want to kind of show like how smart they are too. Like there's just this real like I think our technology industry sort of like rewards like hardworking, smart kind of stuff, and I think there's this like battle of the minds where people are like arm wrestling with each other to show like who's the smartest builder or like who's the most clever, and it just misses the mark of like we're not actually here to prove who's smart. We need to like deliver value. And so I think people just get caught up in the meta aspects of building things without like forgetting of like why they're building things. So they just tend to like build things that are like too complicated for the problem they're trying to solve. And they basically, their imagination just goes beyond their abilities and they stumble and they fall. There is a great quote out there that I'm going to paraphrase it, but basically debugging code is twice as hard as writing it. So therefore, if you write the most clever code you can, you're by definition not smart enough to debug it. And I think there's a lot of things out there that are just like sort of like we're just going beyond our abilities, like when we should be just pulling back and being simple, and then adding complexity when it's needed. So I just think people make things more complicated.
When you talk about like going beyond your abilities and like when it should just be simple, simple is hard.
It is hard.
Simple is hard for all sorts of. I mean, I'm in the hardware space. Simple is hard. Doing simple is hard, and it takes a lot of experience to understand like these are the outcomes. And these are the steps to get the outcome in the most elegant and simple way. And often, in my experience, you do have to build a thing, get it working, and then once you understand things, you can
remove details. Yeah,
but not an easy thing to do.
It's not easy, and I think there's like a concept in art I've heard where they talk about like some artists are like really renowned. They break rules, they just don't follow conventions. Like you're like most extreme maybe, or like Pablo Picasso's. But like I've heard like instructors, because like I've been like teaching myself to draw as an adult, which is kind of a fun story we could get into. But like it's but a lot of like the good teachers, they talk about, first thing I want you to do is I want you to mimic the masters. I want you to take the fundamentals, and I want you to do the fundamentals well. And I want you to be able to reproduce those fundamentals and sort of know why they're there. Like in art, they would like perspective and using like different things. Like those are the fundamentals. Then once you understand the rules, like you said, you can go back and you can start subtracting, and you get these like elements of beauty. It's kind of like um, a, a a long story versus like a poem. Like a poem is like a beautiful thing because you've like removed everything that's excess, and you're just left with like the core ideas and the core, and maybe it has some rhythm to it. But like you've removed things. But I'm not a poet, but I almost guarantee that people who've written very beautiful poems started with something much greater, and then they selected the parts that were best. Same thing with like art too. You selected the parts that were best, and you might have to do like 10 drafts to find the thing that's like to know what to subtract. So there is all this like hidden work, and I think that's maybe people don't talk about that hidden work. Like it's just we often see the result, or we see the outcome. We see like the finished movie. We don't see like all the production that went into it. And we think like, oh well, I'm going to start and I'm going to get finished. I'm going to create this great finished, masterpiece. I'm going to create the Lord of the Rings because, and I think that's maybe part of it. And that's been part of my secret. It's just like tons of hours of like failing to get to a point where I can offer simple, but um, a favorite phrase is build to learn. Like I think we need to do that more. Like just build to like learn stuff so like what to subtract and what you can leave out.
There's that quote that I think it's like attributed to Leonardo da Vinci. The simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, and they're like, or you even was it like maybe Mark Twain or Pascal? I don't know who said the idea that I could have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time. Like it's
Sure,
so
yeah.
hard. It
is hard to write simple. Yeah,
it is, and not just this is talking about conciseness, but like on the design front, I remember I was working. One of my good friends is shout out to Todd Reynolds if he ever watches this. I don't think so because I think there's only 2 people that are watching this.
Hello, 2 people. We
hello,
like
2 people. But we were working on a design, and it was a hard design. It was taking us like days and days to like simplify, compress, reduce, subtract, get something essential. Well, once we got it and we showed it to our CEO, he's like, well, of course that's how you do it. And I was like so mad. I'm like, no, like, of course now that we've done it, it's obvious. It's like, it's obvious now, but it wasn't obvious then. If we didn't have showed you this, you wouldn't have gotten there, like, and there's this real tension where it's like when you actually do produce something of beauty and simplicity, then it's almost like immediately discounted because it exists. Whereas previously it didn't.
Yeah, people feel that, I mean, they it all makes sense once they've seen it. Of course a car is a car, but car was pretty novel when it turned into mass production and stuff with like Henry Ford and stuff. So like it's like I mean, it's, and that's okay. Like that's part of the mystery of it. But like as builders, I think we need to the hard part. So here's a hard part. We have all these AI tools, and they can basically write a full on like essay for you, write a full on book for you, really. And they give you all these things. And if you're really new to an area, you might be like, well, I mean, this sounds good. I mean, sure, we're just going to run with it. I mean, I think this is okay. We're going to run with it. But like you've missed the buildup of it, of like understanding what parts are good, which parts you can take as is, which parts you can leave behind. And so there is just this like we have this new trend, I guess, where you can get very fast. You can get started really fast and you can get going really fast, but you can also hit that wall at the end of the road much sooner. Like, and you're not prepared along the way of like the things that built you up to getting to that wall. So it's like I don't know. It is hard though. There's a story in the Pragmatic Programmer. They talk about one of the authors, Andy Hunt, talks about he was interviewing a pianist at some point in time for a thing, and he talked about how the first guy or first person, I'm not sure, man, woman, first person, first player who went on, they went and they were like playing the song and they were like sweating and they were really exerting themselves, and they played it accurately, but and then they talked about the person that they actually picked for the position, and that person was played the same piece, but they did so effortlessly. They did so with kind of like smiling while they were doing it, and they had sort of that like extra, they made it look simple, even though clearly it wasn't. Like from the previous person, and like that person ended up getting the job, and so it's just this. Um, so what you were saying, Sam, I would say simple is hard, and you get there from lots of trials. The failed light bulb experiments, the things that get there. Maybe you don't talk about those except on a small podcast, but like you just, but like you have to like have a bunch of failed attempts to know like, okay, well, this is like as simple as we can get it, and there's a lot harder ways, and we've abandoned those. We're gonna go with our 10th attempt instead of our first attempt on things.
So, aerospace engineering. I also did some aerospace, and I was in the
Maybe a little
drone.
different with rockets.
Well, no. So this is the images. The images that are coming to my head from that standpoint is that of the aircraft. The simplest aircraft is just a wing. It's just a wing. But
Right.
if you look at where we started with the Wright Flyer, which has these dedicated control surfaces for pitch and yaw, and it worked because it's like simplest from a certain standpoint in terms of like stability, but
From
it's
like a
not the most
mechanical
elegant and
standpoint.
simplest
Yeah.
thing. It took
Right.
like, I don't know, it was like 60 decades. Six, yeah, no,
Not
six,
60
six
decades.
decades, 60 years.
60 decades, 600 years. Wow.
It took like 6 decades for us to figure out how to design a delta wing, a flying wing that was like stable in pitch. And then after that, it still took like several more decades before computers could produce the flight controls of like the B-2 bomber, which is like this incredibly simple, elegant device. But the reason it works is because like computers are doing some heavy lifting to
Sure.
make it like stable. Anyways, I
Yeah.
just think of like that's an example of like simple is hard. Like the B-2 is the most like elegant, clean, simple looking
Mm-hmm.
aircraft. But it took a lot of exploration, a lot of failure in terms of like the aerodynamic side, and then a lot of innovation on the software side to make that elegant machine function.
Right. They didn't do it first try. That's for sure.
No.
They did
Yeah.
not. And I think that's sort of like we are a fast society. We get things through microwaves and instant food from drive-throughs and stuff, and we sort of want to. I think there's a part of us that wants to believe that everything in life could be that way. That everything is like a drive-through away. Pushing the button on the DoorDash to get your food, or we're passing something through a microwave. And I think we want that to happen, but it's not how the world works. Like there needs iteration. There needs all these things to get to the control surfaces of a B-2 bomber, of the like all the computer systems and all the test flights that has to happen. And I think there's just a we want things to be instant, but the great things in life aren't instant. Like they require iteration. They require you to work through them. And I think that's like that's kind of a fading thing, because so many other things in life are instant. I can ask a sentence and I get a full on paper for it. Um, there are still aspects of life that require iteration, that still require thoughtful progression, like to reach the simple state.
I wonder if part of it is like knowing the answer really isn't the thing. As I watch like AI create a scenario where like the marginal cost of knowledge is just like dropping to zero. It's like you can know all the like answers per se, but you knowing the answer doesn't mean that you know why something should be the way it is.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so like someone could what recently we've been struggling with Kubernetes, and I have developed the opinion that Kubernetes is a painful
Solution in search of a problem.
yes, like it is that.
What is
it's like
Kubernetes?
it's a super well. Charles can explain better because he's an expert at it. But like it creates this like super complex infrastructure for doing compute tasks, serving web pages, whatever. And it is like it's so complex. I'm sure there's some case where it's a good idea. But I just don't
At a
know what
certain
that case
scale,
is.
it's a good idea. It's a certain scale, and I can answer your question, Sam, kind of a simple way. So, Kubernetes originated at Google. It was a way to manage lots of computers, sort of like you have a server farm, and you have instead of like managing each individual computer. Um, and making sure it's doing well, you treat it as like a unified cluster, and you think of things as like individual things doing work. They're called pods, but like you're able to think of a group of computers as just this like mass of computing power. Like somehow computing gets done, and you have lots of things. Like it's really good if you have like hundreds or thousands of things that need to get done, and like you have something that's like, look, I just need you to run this somewhere and have it run. So it has this like large orchestration thing of like which which one of these 5, 10, 100 computers should I go to? Well, like there's software that'll like figure that out. It's really good when you have a lot to do. It's not so good when you like need to do something smaller. It would be like the equivalent of, if I were to use like an analogy, is like a diesel engine in a semi truck, and all the gearbox is amazing for hauling freight cross country, right? You have a complex gearbox. You get 1,000,000 miles on a well maintained semi truck engine. It's an amazing thing. It's a terrible vehicle though if you just need to go to your friend's house down the street, like or you need to go to the store and get some milk. Like it's going to be hard to park. It's going to have all these things. It doesn't discount its utility. Like you absolutely need like a truck or a rail system to move the amount of freight we have in the world, but it's just not suited for like your neighborhood tasks, going around the corner. And sometimes where you need to start is like in those neighborhood tasks. And if you start off like, first I need to get down the street to my friend's house, and I'm going to start by learning how to drive a semi truck. You've lost sight of the goal. Like you've lost sight of the thing. So by itself, it's not a inherently bad technology. It just needs to be used in the right ways. And for like a small focus thing, it might be too much. Like it might be just too, you're not solving the core problem. You're solving some like satellite problem. It doesn't matter for like,
I really I use Claude Code a lot for all personal projects for work and stuff. And one of the things that I find with Claude Code is that I'll ask it for roller skates and it will get me like a hover card. And I'll be like, no, I didn't want the hover card. I just wanted the roller skates. No, for reals now. And they're like, are you absolutely right? But
it's like, if you have a system that generates money by charging you usage on tokens, why are we surprised that a system like generates more words when it bills by the word?
And
like,
the cynicism comes out.
I mean,
love it.
It's built into the billing model. I mean, just consume more tokens. So, I mean, is that too cynical? Did I just cross the line? Is that hot take too much?
Ultra Theaky. David was telling me about Ultra Theaky in Claude Code.
Oh yeah, I just found this out. So sometimes you run into a problem, and if you put Ultra Think, like that's a keyword in the prompt, it goes like rainbow. And it spends the maximum amount of thinking tokens on whatever you've asked it to do.
Full course, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but I'm only playing like I don't know how Anthropic's making money off of me because I'm pushing so many tokens through the system. Their cogs must be so low. Like I hope it is.
Someone else is getting like throttled because David's using it too much, like
I'm like
the whole
ultra
world
think
is
all
like,
the time. Ultra think.
the whole world is like, why is my quad slowing down? And David's like, what to get for groceries, and he's doing an ultra think mode.
They're like tracking it down through the satellite system.
Yeah, like
Starlink down. They're like,
what to eat for dinner? Ultra think. Yeah. So, no. So I mean, it's simplicity is hard, but it requires thought. It requires concentration.
Okay, tell me, how do you think about this though? Because the world is complex, and some things in life are inherently complex and resist compression. Like they resist.
That is necessary complexity. There's necessary complexity and unnecessary complexity. So how
do you pull apart and say, okay, this right here is unnecessary complication. I'm going to carve that out. But over here, that's just irreducible complexity, and I've got to just deal with that.
Just the nature of the problem. I think part of that is trial and error. I'm not going to admit I'm some sort of like Nostradamus who picks things. I just fail a lot and often, and sort of like evaluating in my mind, like I should be able to do something in this period of time, and then when that like assumption doesn't hold true, it's stepping back and going like, well, why was I? Because I was like caught up in how to run a certain command, and some of that's like study, like do I have any? Sometimes we're fortunate enough to have examples, especially in like the learning space, of where you can say like, what are other ways to do this? And actually AI can be really helpful for that. Show me, explain this concept to me. You could use it as like a teacher, AI as a teacher. But like I think there's just like a curiosity of just like, okay, I've done it, but can I do it better? Can I do it different? How can I do any of you play instruments?
Yes.
Or musical stuff? A little bit. Like,
I mean, I don't play anymore, but I did growing up.
Okay. So imagine if you had learned a scale and you had stopped. Like, sure, you made sounds, and the sounds were in like a certain order. And even if you just like tapped out a little bit of like a song, that's also like an improvement from a scale. It's like some sort of noticeable melody. But like if you kept going, and like my daughter's been playing piano for like 6 years now, and she's getting really great at it. And my other daughters will play piano as well. And she's recently introduced a metronome into her practice, because she's now working on. She's very good at like reading music. She's very good at like, you can tell the melodies she's playing. She plays performances, but now she's going that like extra 10% or extra 5% to really push through from just being proficient to get into that like expertise realm of like to really like not only the right notes, but at the right times and the right places. And so there's like a professionalism that I think we like, sort of this like appetite to just keep like, okay, reset, do it again, this time with better timing, reset, do it again. And I think that's just a like a mindset thing. So I guess the answer is I am a glutton for punishment, and I just keep repeating things over and over again. That's the way.
Do you know who Dieter Rams is?
No, tell me about.
Okay, so I stumbled into him because of so growing up, huge Mac fan. I am still a Mac fan, but I don't think I qualify anymore as a Mac fanboy. I think like I've like grown out of that stage a little bit, but still a huge fan of everything. Like so much of what Apple does is so great, and a big part of Apple's like return of Steve Jobs was Johnny Ives, and he really in learning about him, I really thought he was the best designer ever. And then when I found out that like his hero was Dieter Rams, then that got me, and then I bought his big thick book. And,
okay, yeah, yeah.
And he has these principles of design that I think are relevant to what you're talking about. And he has listen to these principles. There's only 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is less but better. Focus on the essential aspects.
That was the push for the iPhone, right? Steve Jobs was on stage, and he was like, all these phones, what do they all have in common? They have this physical keyboard. And his first introduction, which was kind of a radical thing, right? It was, we're not doing a physical keyboard, which I miss my BlackBerry keyboard. I wish I had it again. But but I love the physical reaction, physical press. But that was a new thing, and he's like, the software is going to show you what you need on the screen, and the we can't. We're gonna the specific keys you need are going to be determined by the app you're running. And that was a new idea of like a simplification. It was something people kind of kicked against because they were like, I like my buttons. But it worked. It worked for Apple, right? And having the on-screen keyboard, and now like every phone does that. But like it, so I love that design principle of like inaction was like, we're done with physical keys, like just a
Well,
piece
you
of
know,
glass,
it's
you know?
the challenge with less but better for me is that you have to decide what is the essential thing. So
Right.
think about rockets. You've got, Elon Musk, and he's like, um, well, we got to get a rocket up, and it's huge, so
And we got to
huge
land it
that
again.
like we got to land it again. How do we land it again? Legs, every ounce that you put into legs reduces the amount of, increases the amount of gas, reduces the amount of payload. So he's like, just delete the legs and we'll catch it out of thin air. Like, that's his less but better. But Bezos with, Blue Origin, is it Blue Origin? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That,
his, yeah.
like, he said, well, I'm going to simplify and not build as big a rocket so that I can put legs on it and then I can land it on this barge, and so like there's this deciding what is less but better depends ultimately on your value stack at the outset. Like, what are you trying to do? And with the
And you can't
iPhone,
know. Sometimes you can't know. You got to experiment. So, yeah.
yeah, you got to try it with the iPhone. I mean, Jobs' perspective, influenced by who knows what, was that the screen was the dominant issue, and the data entry wasn't important, as important. It could be subjugated to, in his value stack, to a large, beautiful screen with this capacitive resistance type of thing. Let's go to the next one. I think it's fascinating. This is an interesting one. Good design is as little design as possible. So his perspective, and of course, I've totally, it's same with Jobs, totally bought into this, is that design at that time this is like the 60s, 70s, design was flamboyant. It was like, look at me, here I am, love me, like that was the design. And
That's how I lead
Dieter
my
Rams,
life. Love me. But
yeah,
yes, keep
yeah,
going. So
Dieter Rams, sorry, little cars, shout out, but like Dieter Rams was like, no, design should be stepping behind, like stepping back out, like getting out of the way. How do you think, like, how does that apply in your perspective?
it's hard because as human beings, I think there's some part of us wants to be like the hero. And I think our work shows through like we feel like our thumbprint or our contribution to it like is our sort of indication of being the hero. And I think that we have to let go being the hero. Like I love like computer systems that like just work. Like I don't want you to call me, I just want it to work and go home on time. Like that's kind of my like but like it's hard because it kind of goes against the ego. It goes against the human condition of wanting to leave your thumbprint. So um you know, either through trial and error to like just recognize that that ends up working, even though maybe your ego doesn't like it, or through, you know, lucky guessing, so to speak, of getting it right earlier. But like, I think it takes it takes time to be able to like accept that because we want to believe that our ego, and I can tell you why it doesn't work, like why like overthinking it doesn't work, is because there's so many like cases we haven't thought of that like we show like the happy path or the good thing, and we haven't, when we create this really complex thing, we've left out all the like what happens when things go wrong and what happens when Bobby drop tables comes to your forum and all that, like you know, like you know, like there's just like, and I think for me, like in my own career, is I started off in QA and testing, and like my job was to find flaws in other people's work, and that worked out okay for a while. I got a little tired of finding flaws, and actually I sound cynical, but I love building things. So like it's like, so like that experience for me of starting off a career of finding flaws is I already had the like aspect of like I'm gonna make a lot of mistakes, and there's going to be bugs filed against my work, and it doesn't matter how hard I work, there's going to be flaws. So I better just um, not overthink this, because it's just going to multiply the number of things that are wrong. So it was just like pain avoidance was like the way, because I knew that like other testers had it coming for me to like find flaws in their work.
Um, there's a thing that I often think about, and in fact, it came up today was as we were working on some architecture stuff at work, and it's this idea of what is the simplest thing that could possibly work. So like you just keep pushing and compressing and reducing until you like break because it no longer possibly works, and then you
Yeah.
step back one lever, and then you're like, we're gonna try that. I was talking to a friend of mine once, and he's like, I've built a lot of pretty software that doesn't work. He
Sure.
said,
Yeah.
he's like, I just build the dumbest, ugliest, most boring thing possible, and then I start there, because
Yeah.
otherwise I waste all my time. And was it Alan Kay who said, premature optimization is the root of all evil? Like that's what
Sounds about right. Yeah.
like you think it's this false idea that you think you understand all of the contextual realities that your solution's going to be playing in, and it is the fact that you just don't. And the only way you're going to find those out is just to build the software, get it functioning, and then like start getting the feedback. And then over time the software kind of conforms, molds itself, if modified, to the actual real shape.
Let's say there's a video from Y Combinator. They have their startup school, which they do. They have, they have a great like mentoring program for all of their companies that participate in each class of Y Combinator. And they have some videos online, and I'll have to find the link for that. Maybe put that in the show notes or something. But he's talking about like finding that like minimum thing you're talking about, David, and he's like, I want you to imagine someone with their hair on fire, and you would ask someone like, what would you provide them? And usually people would say something that involves water, like a bucket of water, a hose, or something like that, to put out their the fire on their head. And he says, what I want, what you're going to give them is a brick, and because their hair is on fire, they're going to carefully put out the fire with that brick. Now you're going to move to that bucket. You're going to move to the like better water, but like the fact of the matter is their hair is on fire, and you need to like start there, like just smothering the flames. So like that was instructive to me, because it just kind of put some like things in perspective. I'm like, well, that's not right. I wouldn't do a brick. I'm like a deep thinker. I would like architect something, but like sort of just like, no, the hair is on the need that you've willed it down to a problem and a solution, and that's, I think, when you're removing details, you're removing things that don't contribute to the solution. Like I think that's kind of how I see it. It's just, even though they might be fun, I love my shiny things too. I'm human. I'm not without liking them, but sometimes just like, and it's like a statement, like, even if I think in my heart like, well, that's not going to work, but to try it, like, give it a go. If it's not going to work, then that should be evident. It should show. But if it does work, you have to like take the evidence as it is. Well, I'll be darned. A simple shell script fixed their life. Like, like it's you know, like,
Didn't need an iPhone app. They just
didn't need
needed
an
a shell
iPhone
script.
app. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it reminds me of a joke where a grandfather was told his daughter to hand him an iPad, and she says, "Grandpa, you're so old fashioned." And asked him to hand him a newspaper. He said, "Grandpa, you're so old fashioned. All the kids now are using iPads." And then he says, "Well, fine, hand me an iPad." And he takes the iPad and he smacks a fly with it, and the daughter's like all shocked. And like, I just think like, sometimes you really do need a rolled up newspaper and not an iPad, and that's hard. But like, it's a so it's just, I have to. I've just developed a culture of like observe and react. Like I might have my beliefs of like what's
Optimal.
needed, but
Hmm.
what's optimal. But if someone has an idea in the room, I'm like, let's try it. Let's let's give it a shot. Let's see where it fails. Let's see what's missing. And I sometimes like involving other perspectives is a good thing, because being like a computer person and like, yeah, we need like this whole app and we need to have this, and like having people from like different backgrounds can be good, because it just gives you like different ideas, like just, I don't know, just have a person respond to it.
I have a question for you, Charles. So at the beginning of a project, you just now multiple times have talked about how you value like building and then
Absolutely.
like learning and
Build to
building
learn.
and learning and building and learning, going through that process, failing, learning, building. So at the beginning of a project, how much time do you spend, in deep thought, trying to architect the optimal solution for a problem? Or do you go
Well,
straight to like build?
there's a difference here. Is there's like 1,000 hours or more before of being in teams, and like I've had like years of good mentors who have shown me like ways of ways of operating. I've had good teams I've been involved. So there was a maturing process for myself that allowed me to see a lot of things. And I think that's sort of the caveat here is, even if I go in and build something right away, um, I have spent time leading up to that process. And the example I use is like jazz music. People get together, they riff some jazz music. Jazz music doesn't just happen. Jazz music is actually pretty complicated. There's like complicated scales and fingerings and things. And so jazz music happens after you have picked up your instrument, you have learned scales, you have practiced songs, you have sort of mastered the instrument. And then you can get together with a group and you can play group music, or you can riff, you can do improvisations. Like jazz is a lot of like improvisations. Well, sometimes an improvisation is like quickly or slowly moving a scale. Like if you didn't know that scale to begin with, to know that like these notes should be grouped together, um, you're just gonna make like you're not gonna make music, right? It's not gonna sound right. So I do go generally like fairly quickly into like build a little, think a little, and that kind of thing. Like I'm not spending a lot of like, my belief is like for like most architectures, like software architectures, you should be able to form the basic ideas in just a few days of like how information flows, what things talk to each other. You should be able to sort that out in a few days, with the caveat that you have like experience leading leading up to that. So it's not fair to hold somebody who's like new to the industry or like new to software development, to hold them to the same standard of like someone who's been doing it for a while. Just like with a musician, like I don't expect the 8-year-old girl at the piano recital, you know for her, having Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is an accomplishment, and that's a very good personal thing. And it's not fair to like compare her against like my daughter that's been doing it for years. Like they're each on their own journey. So personally, with the much experience I have, I do build very early. But I would
What's the
suggest I,
principle?
I would suggest I would suggest studying. For people, study something that's close to what you want to build if you're not familiar with building.
Okay, so if you've got all this experience under your belt. For someone who is less experienced, is there a guiding principle? Is the right move still to build quickly, or do you spend more time up
you
front
you you, you
thinking,
will
designing, reading
you'll learn different
references?
things. Yeah, you'll learn different things. So you'll learn a certain type of thing from building. Like you will learn faster and deeper than any time in your life than trying to make something real. Like there's things that books can't tell you, videos can't tell you. There's just things you have to have lived experience for, and the only way to get them is to build. So there's like a certain class of knowledge that way. But for someone who's like just starting out, I would say studying the works of others, like studying things and getting an idea how they work, and even simple things like, how does tic-tac-toe work? How does if I'm building games, how does and if like for example, if someone was building games today, I would say go back to the golden age of games. Go back to your like peak arcade games. Go back to Pac-Man. Go back to Space Invaders. Make Space Invaders. Make Pac-Man. Make any of these, make a colossal cave adventure, like make all these original things and gain that ability, and then go to like a modern game, like, and then maybe even start with like a 2D game and move to a 3D game. But like, I guess understanding that learning is in layers, and that if you skip, like, imagine putting a like seventh grader who was struggling with math and putting them into like a calculus class, like they lack like all the steps in between, and it wouldn't be a very good like thing. But at the same time, I could teach um like a seventh grader calculus concepts, maybe without like having them know like all the theory behind it, like, because they can imitate it. So like if you can find something and imitate it, create tutorials, great AI things, like, but just like accept that like you're going to be doing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star for a little while. Like that's kind of the advice. Like don't, it is never bad to start with basics and start as a new learner and ask questions and take them in. Sometimes if you do that, you might get like a frustration, like you might get me being grumpy, answering questions. Sorry, David. It's okay. We're through that. But like, so I guess the principle, Sam, I'm trying to get at is, don't pretend like you're a more advanced learner than you are, and start exactly where you're at. And it's okay to be a novice. And the when you're a novice, you need unambiguous rules, and you need, context-free, unambiguous rules, which is like a tutorial. Like, do the tutorials, do them, learn. And like my favorite way, like back in the day, like old school, was like, look at a web page, see how it's made, like view source, and just like trying to replicate what's already out there. Sorry, that was a long answer. Did that answer your question at all? Or
Yeah, no, I think it did. Um I I, I think the answer is like there's a balance. There's learning that's going to come from building, but maybe another way to put it is there's also like it's wise to go learn from others as well, right?
it does,
Instead
it
of
helps because they can help you focus. Like,
yeah, you don't need to relearn all of the hard lessons on your own. So there's a balance to leveraging the knowledge of others, examples, whatever material education exists,
yeah,
as well as the learning that comes through just trying to make the thing work.
yeah, and it depends on the individual too. Like some people are like maybe better at the school hard knock style learning. They just need to like live it and feel it. Um, but if you can gain those like proxy learnings from other people, like you can follow a great teacher. Like one of the things you lack as a novice is you consider everything, and you lack the relevant focus. So if you can pair with somebody who's more experienced, they're going to give you that relevant focus, and you're going to be able to like, if there's 10 things to consider, they may be able to tell you the two that are like really important, like learn this library and you're good. And that's experience. So
I got a couple of weeks ago, I was working on like, as I was looking at our architecture, I was like, okay, this seems very wrong. I'm just gonna ask AI what it should be. And AI is not good at architecture because it totally gave me the hover car, and so then patiently I worked with Charles, who does have this kind of expertise, to be like, so this, no, not this, this, not this, this, not this. And we took something and like really pared it down to its like essential elements. But literally, I wouldn't know those things. I mean, I can't, I do.
it would have been very hard to discover. Yeah, it would have been.
No, because you don't know why. You don't know why. Like you, even now, like some of the things are like, I can deduce like in my mind and kind of, pattern match, but you don't know why the thing is most. I'll tell you a story from my life. So I started working at Microsoft right out of high school, and I was at Charles. We share this in common. I did not know that. I started in testing, and I was like, this is great because Microsoft was building all these Mac apps. In fact, they really got their start on the Mac, and I'm like, their Mac apps are terrible, and I'm going to fix it because the only reason they're bad is because they just don't know about it. So that was my solution. I'm like, I'm going to go in there as a tester. I'm going to tell them why Word sucks, and then they'll fix it. So then I got there as a tester, and it didn't take me long to figure out, oh no, it's not that. They know it's just these dang developers. They're writing all this crap code. So then I became a developer. I was going to solve that. It's those developers. That's the issue. And so then I kind of became a developer, and I'm like, oh man, it's not the developers, it's the designers. They're the pros, like moving up. And at Microsoft is the product managers that did a bunch of the design. They didn't always do the graphic design, but a big part of what they did. And then, as my career has gone on, I've moved up the stack, and like most
Wait,
recently,
can we all agree as the users? I mean,
actually, it really, in a way, it is the where I ended as CEO of this company, and I'm like, it's the business leaders that are causing all the problems. That's the issue, like I've moved all the way up, and I feel like it's not that story for me is like obviously a personal journey of my career, but what I learned through it is that where you think the problem, some things are necessary and then others are sufficient. And like you may have one startup I did, my goal in that startup was I'm going to prove that you can build it right and fast, because everyone was always telling me you just got to like slop it together and you can't go startup speed. And I'm like, no, I think you can go really fast and do something maybe not perfect, but you can do things that allow you to go faster than just like scrapping it together, vibe coding, slop. And so anyway, I was able to prove that to myself and our dev team. But
there's still humans involved. Yeah. It's like,
well, yeah, I mean, there's always like, you gotta have some tolerance there. But that actually wasn't that was a good thing, that, but it wasn't sufficient for success, because the business model of the business was the reason it failed. So we had this beautiful software that was like super cool and easy to use and all this stuff, but the business model and the whole thing fails. So like you start to build, I think, with what you're talking about, like doing all these reps and learning, you start to build a kind of mental framework that allows you to be like, okay, I know I could do this thing, but it really isn't core to what I'm trying to explore in the problem space. And so, but you're saying like build, and what that will do is it will take risk off the table, and it will help you explore the problem space in a way that you get a visceral understanding. How do you use risk as a filter for how you approach like what you're going to build? I know we've talked about this, but
yeah.
How do you think about that in terms of prior? You have this landscape of all these different things you could build. How do you decide like where to spend your energy?
As an individual contributor, I did not at first. I would go to the things that were like most interesting, or like most like interesting. Eventually, over time, I became a manager of like software engineers and a manager of software architects, and that changed my perspective. Then I was like, these darn engineers can't stay focused. I want them to work on A, they're working on B, and then I find out they've spent all their time working on C. That doesn't matter. Like, and I think that just sort of experiencing the cat herding, and being in more exposure to, it's a hard thing being probably being business minded, customer minded, and not having the technical pieces. Like dealing with software engineers has probably got to be difficult. It's like you ask for this simple thing, I just want a button, and they come back, well, you can't have the button because it'll break the page, and they add the button and like this other thing is blowing up. Like it's got to be like super frustrating. You're like, I thought you people were smart, like why does this keep happening? And there's this like disconnect of how it's actually working. Like there's a big disconnect for like how people want it to work and then how it actually works. I used this analogy at a previous job that the business is talking like everything is this composable piece. Like and I use the term a salad bar. Think of a salad bar where you're like picking and choosing the pieces you want to form the final plate you have. And the analogy I use, I was like, well, what we have in our software though is a chili or a lasagna. It's baked. It takes a long time to put together, and you just kind of get what's served to you. Like I can't pick out the pieces. It's just all together, and it's gonna take 3 hours to make it, and you're just gonna get what's on your plate. Like, so like really they want that, but like early on they don't know how to ask for that. They just like the first need is like fast, and like I just need it fast, and that's sure one pot meal, throw it in there, and that's fast. And I think that's but going back to your question of repeat your question one more time. I've gone off into the weeds here, but I was going somewhere with that. One more time, David, with you.
I forgot my question. Sam, help us
Okay,
out.
dang
We're
it.
so.
I'm drifting.
I was enjoying the answer.
Yeah, I was thinking it's getting close to dinner, so I'm thinking about food. But the but you had asked about risk first, and I
That's right.
became
That's what it was.
more
It was
yeah,
about risk. Yeah, it was
and
about
I
risk.
became more aware of risk as a manager, and I think that I would encourage engineers out there. There's sort of like this like aversion for like, oh, I'm technical, I can't be an engineer. We need technical managers. We need people who understand software and are willing to talk to other people and explain it. Like I think when software engineers abdicate the management responsibilities and they say, well, that's not me, I can't do anything business. I think they suffer for it because they continue to have people who don't understand their job directing it. Like we need you to do both, actually. We need you to understand software and learn how to keep a calendar and talk in a meeting. And so like as a manager, I became more aware of risk and it changed kind of how I develop software. And so now I'm like from like a project management perspective is I want to tackle the hard risk early. Like I want to like if something's going to be a stumbling block, I want to find it out. I think the worst kind of like expectations we can set is like we do all the easy stuff at first and we're like, yeah, it's going along, it's going along. I don't think anyone wants to hear 2 weeks into an effort, 2 months into an effort, 8 months into an effort, we're stopped, green, 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 we're stopped, lines down, red, it's broken, the world is ending. Like no one wants to hear that. And the problem is there's a lot of people in this like position or industry that they're like people pleasers. So they get this good like little dopamine hit of like, oh yeah, it's easy. You like hearing easy. I'll tell you more things are easy. And they withhold like holding sharing bad news like till it's like later in the project and they have no choice and it's obvious. And so I just prefer now like managing projects, managing teams is look, if it's going to be risky, let's just do it right now and figure out if this project's going to work or not. Like instead of like the shock surprise of like we ran out of gas halfway through the trip, like let's just talk about it right now. And it makes people a little bit uncomfortable. It
I think
makes
it's hard for devs to do because their natural inclination is build, but the large, especially in a startup, and we've done several startups right amongst us, and the larger inclination is just to build something when sometimes the core assumptions that the whole business is predicated need to be
yeah.
validated at the beginning before you even built anything. And that's just really it's an unnatural kind of thing to do when you're like, well, I'm not being productive because I'm not building something. And it's like, well, how about you build something that's going to prove out whether or not this business is even viable? And that is a hard thing to do.
I have a story from that where I got to learn
Okay,
that.
please.
So I had early on when apps were like still a thing and like people were making money from fart apps and things like that. Like I had just like I had set out and what I wanted to do was I wanted to make an educational app that it was called Math Genius. I don't even know, it might still be out there on all the app stores, but like it was basically to help people like memorize math facts and things. And so I'd put a lot of time, I'd put a lot of effort into making Math Genius really cool. And I had this cool like thing that generated problems and it had this like all this like coolness. And I released it and I had a free version and I had a paid version. And lots of people on free, no real conversions to paid. And I made this like quick little throwaway app that was just like a food storage tracking app. It was just like use a list of have these items for a to have on hand for food storage. And it was just like a checklist. It was really like all it was. And I put that one up. I'm like, I'm not gonna do a free one on this. I'm just gonna like put this up and sell it. I made more money on that simple little checklist food storage, like hoarding food. I made more money on than like the thing I really cared about, which was like the math program. And what I had found when I dug into the analytics was the people who cared about like the learning and progression were coming from more like developing economies. And like it was important to them to like just get better at math and a dollar was a lot for their economy, right? So it was like a barrier for them to enter. They wanted to improve, but they didn't have the funds to buy. Whereas like the food storage one was all like US, UK, like that market had like disposable income and they were like ready to do it. But it was just like a statement to me that like even though you might be like passionate about something, um, it doesn't mean it's necessarily like successful in the market. Like that, and that was like a it was like I wanted the math genius to be the thing, like to be like I wanted to be like spreading math joy to people and helping them learn. But like my assumptions of how the world worked did not match how the world worked. So
Sam, how have you seen, like, so Samuel, obviously we're two cringers.
I know we're sitting here just being geeky, and Sam's like, "Why did I bring you here?"
But you have an interesting background because you are like you've had like adjacent interactions with software. Because if you're building hardware, you have to deal with software because very often software
hate you software guys. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you hate those software guys.
No rigor. You guys aren't even engineers.
We've had a lot of discussions, but and then recently you have entered the vibe coding world, and like tell how have you like what has your experience been?
I mean, specifically with like software development as a novice, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, well,
Sure.
yeah, software development, and also like how complexity can like get in the way, or simplicity is so important, or like timing of those things.
This as far as software's always been interesting to me, but I've always done the physical hardware side, and didn't have time to do the software thing. So the AI stuff has been fascinating because I could build things that I, very quickly that I didn't have to like go study and learn to build. And I've worked close enough with software engineers over the years and tested enough software that I've had a lot of good success in terms of building applications that are stable and reliable because I can find all the corners pretty well and then ask AI to fix it. But I know it's fat. I know it's slop. And I very much feel like with these projects that, if they were ever to go anywhere, at some point in scale, they would have to be rebuilt, is my belief. But
Yeah,
I'm personally really okay with that. And this is more
because it fits your needs for the near term, right? You're like, it's good enough, right?
I think yes, I think that as far as like trying to build a tool or a business, like in my experience, the risks of finding a market and customers are a lot higher than like the technology being insufficient to support 3 million users. And so, so like with these experiments that I've done, I am totally comfortable building this thing that's bloated and complex and probably fragile because it allows me to go test the market. And then eventually, if there's a market, like, I'll hire someone to do it right. And that makes sense to me. So as far as like simplicity in software, I don't know enough software to
Sounds cool to you. I mean, like it's sending
like,
emails and stuff for you, and it's good.
like what I can say is the more I've gotten involved over the last several years, I've been closer to software and firmware. I've been managing the Linux, like the development of a Linux operating system for our embedded device. Man, I have a lot more appreciation for what's going on in that piece of magic. So yeah, I don't know. I appreciate simplicity. So when people can sit down and talk to me through things, I'm like, man, that's elegant when it's a simple solution.
Yeah, that'd be nicer to do it that way. Yeah, I wish I would have known that 3 weeks ago before I packed this together. It's like there's a timing to it, right?
but some of it is like that. You just don't know what you don't know. Just today, I was working with Charles. We were talking about mail, because when you build a system, you need some ability to send mail to reset their password, or multi-factor authentication code or whatever. And I've had to set up essentially kind of like a test mail server to test this whole system. And Charles is like, no, there's this tool that you can just like, whenever you issue a send mail command, it just opens a web page. It literally serves a new web page in your dev environment that shows you the mail that would have been sent, and then will be sent in production. And I'm like, oh my goodness, all these years I've been like doing these contortions, setting up these Docker images, setting the, like building the server thing so that I can see the mail without a mail server locally. And you just don't know these things, right? You don't know that there's a simpler way to do it until you, kind of do the reps and get these kinds of experiences. So it is a real challenge.
I will
It is a
say,
real challenge.
with the project I did a year ago, this is like a web app. As I started working through that, and a year ago, I have the experience a year ago, and then the experience in recent months, and AI
Mhm.
has come a long ways on the vibe
Yeah,
coding
it
front.
has.
And there are lots of things that like I had to like dig a little deeper, learn, coerce the AI to build a year ago, that like these
Now it just
days
does.
it
Yeah.
just does it, and it does it way better than like I could, and way better than it would have done a year ago. And I was very impressed, or I guess surprised, by the complexity of simple things in like even just the web dev environment. I was like, man, just to like set up a button, I need to do all of this, or like, man,
We were having that today.
just to connect like this service to payment on Stripe. Like, I've been hearing about Stripe for 10 years. I thought this was easy. Turns out it's like still complex and hard. Or like authentication, that was a whole thing. I was using Firebase and I was like, why is this so hard? I thought this was a solved problem. And it was like I had a lot of appreciation for the complexity of all these systems that have to work together just to support a simple website with a simple, tool that needs a payment and authentication. That was a pause. Like, it was a lot of appreciation for the complexity that these systems have to be.
Yeah, they definitely are easier to use than they are to make. Like that's one thing I face as like a developer is a lot of times people are like, why is this so hard to understand? I want a button and I want the button to go over here and do this and show this table. And and sometimes in their moments of frustration they'll talk to me like that. And I'm like, I understand. This does seem very simple, right? This shouldn't be this complicated. But like the reality is we're in a some things that have been built up before me, and I like to just kind of like educate people like that should be simple, but because of 100 different choices in the past, it now requires this type of work. It has to go to these 7 places to get there. The things you see on the screen come from a bunch of different places, and I just try to help people like understand. But I understand people's frustration with like software developers. Like it shouldn't be this hard. Why are there so many layers? Like Dave and I were talking, going over like modern web dev, and it was like a list of like 50 things, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know how we've gotten to this way as an industry, but it's
But
like
it's true.
it's like 50 different things you need to do, and that's the underlying challenge with software is other aspects of life, whether you're like building a house or you're building a circuit board, like you're constrained by the laws of physics. Like maybe you got to push those physics a little bit, like if you're doing like a high speed signal like PCB board or something, there's like a more constrained workspace, but you still have to work within physics, the bounds of physics. The only thing we're bound by in software is people's imagination. They can literally make up anything they want as far as what the, A to B to C and those things. And there's a number of different like specialized tools for things, and everyone wants to have their little thing. Some people, it's like a resume driven thing to like be the publisher or maintainer of a library or popular tool. Like everybody's trying to like be their own little hero, and you just have like unbound complexity is like the struggle of the software world, and it's like you're missing that with like interacting with like authentication or whatever. That there's unbound complexity, only bound by the imagination, only bound by the time that developers put in. And there's a lot of developers, and there's a lot of time to make things that are just all sorts
What
of like
tangled,
crazy.
what tangled webs
so,
we weave, I mean, it's just
yeah.
like,
And there'll be more with like the vibe coded stuff. So there's just unbound complexity is the like complexity management is software engineering is
Yeah.
is how those are related. So
It was funny is after that experience where like honestly building the web tool was like really enjoyable. It like came up, it worked well. And then I spent like a ton of time trying to figure out the integration with for payment and authentication. Like that was the painful part. And then
That's our life as well.
in recent months, I used a platform to build it like a sales funnel thing, and that was insane. Like I literally hit a button, put in my credentials, and all of a sudden all the products were synced up with Stripe, and like I had to do nothing. And I was like, that was amazing. I was like, I can't believe
that's
that.
something you can then charge for, right? Like
Yeah,
that's like a
absolutely. I
meaningful
am
product.
paying for that. Yep.
Yeah, and it is solved like, and you don't mind paying for that because it's like, well, I know how hard that was. I don't want to live through that pain again. And so like as a product, they have found like a pain point and given like a reasonable like you used to spend 2 days struggling, and now it's 2 minutes and it's set up, and then you have like a value there, right? You can like value 2 days of your time for the subscription fee. It feels good to pay that subscription fee because you know how much it could have cost you. For them, it's good because they've scaled. Like that's like solving a real problem, and I think that's where like coming back kind of to the beginning is like if you can solve an actual problem for somebody, there's like this great exchange of commerce. But like it's when we get off in the weeds and we're not actually solving the problem or we're making it worse. Like that's where like maybe our activities need to be rethought a little bit. It's a kind of like a Hippocratic oath, do no harm. It's kind of the idea.
There's that great. Oh, I have two things to say about this. First is Eric Evans wrote this book. It's named, but I love its subtitle better than the name. It's domain driven design is the name of, but his subtitle is the part that's beautiful. He said tackling complexity in the heart of software, and other principal engineers out there, we can argue about whether or not he succeeds in tackling it, but like that idea that the core of software engineering, just like you said, is this idea of complexity reduction. And Sam, you've just talked about a scenario where someone unleashed enormous value by creating something simple, and essentially papering over or like pretending that it wasn't complex. I mean, it's because you've tried to do this. You're like, oh, it's actually really complex, but it became simple to you, and underneath that simplicity is this massive jumble of complexity.
It's what do they say? A duck swimming. If you look at a duck swimming, they are very calm on the surface, and then they're just paddling their feet below. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't. It's underneath you don't see. I remember this joke. This is like 1990s. Do you remember this where they compared if operating systems were airlines? Do you remember this?
No.
Oh, this is. I'm gonna butcher this, but I'll tell it to you anyway. So they're like, well, if Windows Airlines, it crashes all the time, and you're not sure if you're going to reach your destination, but everyone flies it. Like that's the right. But Max, beautiful planes, great experience, but only flies to 2 airports and costs more than everything else. This idea. And then Linux was the one that always got me. Is like Linux, they give you the parts and tools, and everyone shows up on the tarmac, and they put the plane together. But once you figure it out, it works. Like
there you go.
And that's like, all of the. There's just so much complexity in life, and so yes, getting to simplicity can really unlock a ton of value.
If you can reach it, if you can stay in long enough, stay in the boat.
It's a worthy goal. It's a worthy goal, and but there's risk and value are inversely proportional, and so there's just a lot of risk in the iteration that you're talking about, Charles, of trying to approximate what that looks like. And whether it's like a technical kind of simplicity or like at the product level or at the business model, at every
stage. No, hopefully you're not like iterating on like roller coasters or rocket engines, or maybe you're iterating a little bit. Like there's like some like public safety things that need hard, rigorous engineering, but we have the opportunity in software to run 100 experiments and have it not be
no one's dying.
Deal.
No one's dying. But you know what?
Unless you're making airplanes that run into mountains when a sensor is off. But
Oh, totally.
But
totally.
there is risk to public safety to some of the like sort of like people who think that they are building a social media site, and they apply those same like lax attitudes to aspects that involve public safety. Like there's a time and place for like fast and loose, and like people's like public safety elements is not that time. Like there's like a so
In the drone industry, so one of the premier flight control systems that are used across the world is an open source like control system, open source project. And in the early days of that project, it felt very fast and loose. And those of us who were like flying these aircraft were like, look, like this can still fall out of the sky and kill someone. Like
yeah, it's big.
we like this isn't, airlines, there's nobody on board, but like we're still on the safety critical scale, and we still have to be careful and intentional. And like I have been at the park flying drones where software malfunctioned and it fell down near people. Like I've experienced this, right? And so it's just there's absolutely a time even like to be intentional. Like this isn't just normal software land. This is if there's a bug, somebody gets hurt, you have to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, you have to take it seriously, and it's almost like we've created like a two-track system in technology where there's like fast and loose as expected, and errors will happen, and people will just go, and then there's like this other like safety-minded thing. But the problem is like we just experienced the other day with like the Cloudflare outage and the AWS outage and the Azure outage, is even if you make something that is like maybe not clearly a public safety thing, it still may grow to such popularity that people depend on it. Like they depend on it to run their businesses and like to run, to run things. Is like it crosses over to being like this important thing that can't fail. Which is it's an interesting world where people sort of like, even like, I use like social media as like a like fast and loose thing. Even that, like people get kind of grumpy when they're like, if they're using like social media for their business or whatever, like to promote it, like they get a little grumpy like when those things aren't working. So it's kind of an interesting thing, and of you when you make something that becomes important to people, like in some way. So
Charles, how are you doing for time?
I'm doing pretty good, though. I am smelling some tacos on the thing here. So
Okay.
I am
I
I'm about to turn.
I have a question.
Yes.
David, do you have something? I have a discussion that
Well,
I'm interested
I
in.
want. I just want to point out something that I think you brought up rockets and like safety and all that stuff, but even in that space, you've seen Elon Musk simplify the Raptor engine over. Like you
Yeah.
see that iconic picture of where like there's all
Yeah.
the tubes and then now
Complicated.
they're
Yeah.
printing it, and like and his process, like his algorithm is like question every requirement. Like bring that at beginners in mind. The most dangerous thing is a smart person giving you requirements. He says, right? And then like delete the part or process. Like remove, and we've been going through that at Pallium, just ruthlessly getting rid of stuff that's weighing
It's hard
down.
because as humans we're emotionally attached to things, and like there'll be discussions where like even David will be like, what about this thing? And like it'll be like a thing I suggested, like, but that's my baby. I can't. Fine, cut it.
Charles is great about it. Charles is great about it. He's good. But anyway,
We
delete
had that
the part or
had that in a
process.
design review the other day where a part got deleted, and it it impacted my ego for about 30 seconds, and then I thought deeply about what they said, and I said, you're right, let's move on. So like it's
I like this idea of that if you're not occasionally adding things back in, you're not deleting enough. Like you need to go all the way to the line, pass it, so that you've passed it, and then
Yes.
you can bring it back, right? And then only after you've like questioned all the requirements and deleted everything you possibly can, then you simplify, but and try to optimize. Really, he kind of sometimes says optimize, sometimes simplify, and then you try to do that faster. We talk about all the time, you like do less more frequently is the way to velocity, and small incremental sashimi, that idea. And then at the very last you automate, and it's when you jump to the automation first, he seems to suggest that process of like ossifying your thoughts about the system into an automation, it just like creates rigidity. Lana and I often talk about flexibility is life, rigidity is death. The things that are rigid in life are dead. Things that are flexible in life are alive. So like flexibility is life, and as soon as you automate, you just like lock it in. And that's one of the reasons I'm so concerned about so much that's happening in the AI industry right now is like people are doing stuff with like N8N or like automation, creating all these workflows, and they are basically ossifying or solidifying, creating rigid structures around their business processes that are good now, but what if in the future when they do and will change, and then all of a sudden they won't be able to move and innovate?
Then they'll figure out why software engineers are so grumpy because stuff always changes all the time and data formats change. And they're like, I get it. Well, like that guy's got the weird beard. He's kind of cynical and grumpy. What's up with that? It's because like I got to learn new frameworks every 2 years. Like it's because
totally.
I don't
I got to retool again.
That's one of the talk about like the medical industry. There's a lot of parts in the body, but they're finite. You're not getting a new part every 2 years. And
you're not getting like a bonus spleen.
You can work hard. You can work hard and know all the parts of the body and be set for the rest of your career. The things I'm using today will be entirely different 2 years from now, from a year from now. So it's like a constant constant change there. But Sam, you had a question. Could that be our like closing question for today? And we could close there. Is that okay?
Let's do it. AI kind of boom over the last however many years here, 3, 4 years, 2 years, I don't know. It's all a blur. Yeah, it is all a blur. As I speak with different senior software engineers, I hear a lot of different opinions about how these AI tools will affect junior developers or aspiring software engineers. And I'm curious, what is your recommendation for how junior developers or aspiring software engineers should use these tools as they come up?
I would highly recommend that people use these tools to learn. There is a siren song for having them do all of your work, and the first time you sort of get praised for like, thanks for doing that and getting that done, it just sort of creates this like feedback loop. And there's this meme out there, like I just keep Googling and it just keeps working. There's like you could just upgrade that to I just keep using AI and it keeps working. And like the guy has like medals on his thing. And I think we have to not sacrifice our humanity. And our humanity is in creativity and problem solving. I think that's one of our like core like the creative elements of humanity. And so I think we have to resist the urge to get the quick edification for what we're doing. And we still have to put in the reps. If you could think of, what to use like an analogy is, think of something like we have all sorts of modes of transportation now. We have cars and skateboards and stuff. And like one of the trends of like electric bikes, everyone loves their electric bike now, right? Like they're zooming around and doing wheelies and it's amazing, and they say to themselves like, oh, I'm going on a bike ride. But like, are you getting the same like heart improvement and muscle improvement that you would get from pedaling a bike? It's hard because pedaling makes you sweat and pedaling is uncomfortable when you go slow and hills are hard. But over a long period of time, that pedaling is very good for you. Like it's work is growth for human beings. So we can't completely eliminate work. And so I would say use these tools to educate you, use these tools to advance your knowledge. Help them have to use these tools to explain things to you, but you still got to put in the reps. You still got to learn the scales. You still have to learn how to problem solve because that's your unique offering as a human being.
Excellent. Okay, well, this has been another episode of the Build Different podcast. Charles, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you.
Charles. Yeah,
all right.
You're the best.
Talk to you guys later.
We'll see you later.
See you. Bye.
That was awesome. I actually want to continue this discussion for a moment about simplicity. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it. I thought it was so great to have him. He's just a wealth of experience. He's so much.
It was obvious. I really like him.
Yeah, he's just paid the price to just really get good at his craft. He's just he's just a gem. And I've worked with devs like him before. And when I first got there, I immediately said, I was talking to the CEO, and I'm like, oh man, Charles is a gem. This is great. He's fantastic. But anyway, what was your take on talking to him about all that?
Well, here's my thing. This is the where my head's around simplicity. Let's go through the examples.
Okay.
Let's talk about Raptor 3 for a second. and then we can talk about this funnel building platform that does this integration with Stripe. Raptor 3 looks simple. It is not simple. Underneath, inside of that motor is an incredible amount of complexity. Like insane. But it looks simple on the outside. The one button I press on this platform to connect to Stripe is beautifully simple, right? Press the button and put in my credentials, done. That is not simple. What is happening underneath that button is extremely complex. It's all the complexity that I had to go through and more to do that integration. So what simplicity are we talking about? Are we talking about the simplicity that's for the user? Is that the simplicity we're after?
Maybe simplicity sometimes replaced for easy. Is that what's going on? It's like, oh, it's simple, but what they really mean is I can get my end result, I can get my desired outcome, and it's low effort. Maybe that's all that is.
Maybe that's what that is. Or
it looks simple, therefore I assume it is simple because it looks simple. Like in his example with the piano. It looks effortless because this person's playing this piano. But is it? Is it really? Actually, no, that's decades of practice and experience. So yeah, maybe everything is complex. And it's just this veneer, this wallpapering over the complexity that we value because it's like a release from the actual complexities in life.
Well, on the software front, I think of different languages. And these days we have these really, and this is obviously outside my wheelhouse, but I have a sense that now we have these sophisticated languages that in a few characters in a single line, you can very elegantly do this complex thing. But that same thing, if you go down the stack, as you get closer to the hardware, there's a lot of complexity going on, right? It just really looks simple when it's just this one elegant line in a modern programming language. And so
keep going.
I'm just still it's not clear to me what simple we should be pursuing. So because simple feels like a very relative thing. It's relative to my experience in that field, right? What is simple to me is complex to someone else. It's relative to where you are in the stack, whether you're a user that's pressing one button or the engineer that's architecting integrations. It's relative to so many things. And so because of that, I think it's a little bit difficult to nail down what we should what simple is and what we should seek to do in an effort to pursue simplicity.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because one person might say simplicity is the absence of component parts. There's fewer parts. And your value stack really comes to play here too. A car is not simple, but sitting down, pressing a pedal and turning a wheel to get from point A to point Z, point B or whatever, that is simple. The things you have to do, but the mechanics underneath, the explosions and the heat dissipation and the gas lines and the hydraulics and the all of that.
So I guess it's give me an example of actual simple, because what is actually simple? I don't know. You can always go down a layer and find complexity. Always. let's go down to like physics and atoms. Like you can always go deeper and find complexity. So like what is simple and what should we be, I think I think there are two things that we aspire to, that are obvious. One is simplicity for the user. There's like value in simplicity for the user. If we can abstract or hide a bunch of complexity such that all the user has to do is turn the key and press the pedal, there's value there. Or all the user has to do is hit a switch and put in credentials, like there's value there. So we should seek after creating simplicity for the user. Now, as a crafts person, as an artist in my field or in our own fields, I think we also seek after simplicity in like the architecture of the thing we build. Like I think of a hardware device that I've been working on in recent years, and over several iterations of the device, the final iteration is like super elegant in its assembly, in the manufacturability of that assembly. And it's simple and it's elegant for what it is. But anyways, I think seeking after simplicity for like the user interactions, but I think we also seek after simplicity in our own realms of art to create the simple architectures, because we know that simplicity yields reliability, and we want the reliability is one of the things that it yields.
I mean, it's a really fantastic point, because it kind of comes down to what you value, right? If you value like say control, then maybe your simplicity is something where you have maximum optionality, right? And maybe someone who likes that probably doesn't like Apple stuff because they like all the bells and knobs and witches. They like all the tweaking, like that, right?
Like my buddy he loves the laptop. I can't think of what it's called right now, but it's that modular laptop that like you can plug in all the different ports and like reconfigure it exactly how you want. And he loves it, and he still brings around his physical keyboard to like type on. And I'm like, I'm so confused. Anyway,
because the keyboard is so bad, right? Yeah. So like, part of it is like what? But if you value, like, let's suppose you're valuing you're valuing your time. You don't like want to twiddle with all the things. Then you're valuing the removal of options, right? You're valuing like, I just don't want to manage this thing, so I will pay either a human or a robot or something to like manage all that complexity, so I can be simple for me. Even though it's not simple, like it still is complex. To your point, yeah, it's very, very fascinating. What is the dictionary definition? Simple. Here it is. Adjective. Easily understood or done. So ease. That's kind of like where we're heading. Oh, here's another one. That's the first definition. Presenting no difficulty. So it really is about ease. But ease for who, right? To your point. Is it ease for, like, I think the whole business of software is about making the software engineering teams doing, wickedly complex things so that it's easy for the person using it. It's like they get the easy thing, but we take the heat, in allowing
and
that.
That's where the value is created. The value is created in making the experience for the user simple, intuitive.
But sometimes it creates a metacognitive miscalibration, because you when you paper over that complexity, as long as that abstraction works, you're good. But the second when something goes down and you can't peer into the the sausage, the messy innards, you can't fix it anymore. And then what is simple? Then like the complexity rears its ugly head, and then you are stuck. Like there's a bunch of farmers around here, and they have these beautiful, wonderful John Deere tractors. But John Deere famously is not really in, like, if you have something go wrong with your John Deere tractor, you're spending tens of thousands of dollars to get it repaired. because of like it has to be, authenticated parts and all this stuff. And like there's this one tractor that a bunch of the farmers up here like, and it was the tractor right before electronics got introduced. And they love it because they can always fix it. It's a simple meaning easy to fix. The gears, everything that makes up that tractor is like fairly straightforward, and it's like always fixable. And as soon as you introduce software and chips and whatever, then like they can't fix it on their own. And that their value is like, when my tractor goes down, I need to fix it and get back out on the field.
See,
and so their value is.
So here's another good example. Let's talk about simplicity, because it's this scale. Let's talk about the sewing machine. The sewing machine is if you like the traditional historic sewing machine from 50 years ago is a mechanical wonder. Especially the complex ones where you can do all these different stitches. It's all mechanical. You're like when you're adjusting the stitch, it's like moving between cam sets to get these different complex motions. Incredible mechanical systems. You can get all of the same features with electronics and servos in modern sewing machines, where all of that mechanical elegance, because I'm a mechanical engineer, all of that mechanical beauty is removed and replaced with mechanically simple devices, right? We're like stators, servos, and the complexity is moved into software, which is controlling the positional, coordinating the position of all of these parts to create these stitches. What's simple? Because from a mechanical standpoint, the modern sewing machine is more simple. There are fewer parts. The mechanical systems are more simple. But the complexity is now shifted to like software. So, what's simple?
Complexity's actually gone up, because I almost guarantee you that what's running in that computer is probably maybe it's a simple as a Pi, but like it's like a Linux operating system. I mean, running a Linux operating system to move that's like trade. If that's not killing a fly with a sledgehammer, I don't know what is, right? But like you like it's this massively capable thing, and they're like, we just need to like move this thing this way and move that thing that way. Whereas in the past, what would you do? You'd build like a 8080, or you use some kind of like small mechanical thing that only has enough registers for what you need to do, and then you program it out and just like it does it, So, I mean, in that comparison, it's like killing a fly with a nuclear bomb, It's like so like oversized.
Yeah. What is simple? It feels like a very relative thing, relative to experience, relative to environment, relative to...
and what's easy for one is not easy for another, just the other day I was moving something with the what was I moving? I think it was, I don't know. Oh yeah, wheelbarrow. My 6-year-old, he couldn't move this wheelbarrow, and I just lifted up and moved it. So that was simple for me, super not simple for him. He was like all trying to like get his shoulder over one of them, it's causing it to tilt. Like capacity is a part of it. Listen to these other two definitions. These are interesting. Plain, basic, or uncomplicated in form, nature, or design, without much decoration or ornamentation. Humble, unpretentious. That's the second definition. Third definition, composed of a single element, not a compound. So this comes down to like fewer parts is more elegant. More parts is less.
See, but as the mechanical guy, there can be a lot of complexity in a single part. And that's where, like the Raptor 3, it's like one part. That entire motor chamber,
all 3D printed, right? With all of those pipes and hoses and everything going.
It's all one part, but that doesn't mean it's simpler. It's a very complex part, very complex.
Yeah, and if they literally oh, sorry, go say that again.
It's also a complex manufacturing process.
Yeah, because if it wasn't for the ability to 3D print metal and then sinter it, you would not literally be impossible to build those geometries. Composed of a single element, not a compound, denoting. So like in that way, externally you see all the absence of these pipes and you think it's simple, but it's definitely a compound. It's just like hidden. This is the last one. Having an intellectual disability, dated or simple.
Old school dictionary.
Yeah, totally.
What was the first
can,
one of this set you just went through? What was the first one you read?
The first one is easily understood or done, presenting no difficulty. Yeah, I think there is a desire generally. I mean, I know in physics and math, there's always this desire to like find a universal principle that like governs all of these other sub areas of science, and maybe string theory was postulated as that thing, or maybe now it's quantum mechanics or whatever. Like everyone's trying to figure out like what is this like root thing. There seems to be a desire or like almost an expectation that things would boil down into something simple. But then as you like peel back the layers, you just find more complexity. Initially we just thought the atom was this, and then there's quarks and muons and like all zuons and whatever, like all these subatomic particles. It's like, wait, it just keeps exploding the smaller we get. And I don't know.
That just reminds me of like being in dynamics. So advanced dynamics was the only class I had to take twice, and in college. The first time I took it was an extremely busy semester, and I couldn't put the time in, and I didn't get the grade I wanted, and so I ended up retaking it. It's not one of my strong suits. But one of the things you do in that class a lot is you take F equals ma, this incredibly elegant equation. That equation can explode so quickly. Once you start summing forces on this side and summing masses and accelerations on that side and rearrange it, it just woof. And so it's like that's a simple, elegant thing. But then again, once you start actually applying that to the real world, it just goes woof. It just explodes into complexity. And yeah, anyways.
It reminds me of that old like what's that old calculus joke? Let me find myself. It's like oh, come on, I can find it. Oh, here it is. This is the calculus joke. Thank you, ChatGPT. Professor Chen drew a line on the board. You're standing 1 mile from a mailbox with an urgent letter. You walk halfway there. She marked the midpoint of the line on the whiteboard. Now you walk half the remaining distance, then half again and again, forever. A student frowned. So I never reached the mailbox? Mathematically, no. You're always a tiny fraction away. The professor smiled. But here's the thing. She tapped on the board. After enough steps, you get close enough to mail the letter. Class groans, Welcome to limits, where infinity meets good enough. I think sometimes our desire for trying to precisely and, categorize and clarify and make everything just so. And I just think maybe there's an acceptance that comes maybe with age, maybe with experience, maybe with just understanding that there's a lot of things in life that are a lot more complex than they think. And the things that you think are simple are probably not so simple. And there's like a humility that comes about that when you're forced. I love working with engineers or mechanics or people that work with atoms. As a software engineer, I love working with people that way because they're not confused about how the world works. And software engineer, you can be very confused about how things work because it's all synthetic. It's like you're making up crap. But when you're working, I have a good friend here. Shout out to Bart Erickson, and he's a great mechanic. He's really, as a mechanic, he's a savant. I mean, he's just amazing. He can fix anything. And I love just working with him. He's so grounded in the natural result of common forces. It's just like not, there's something really grounding about that. And there's a lot of areas in life where things are much more, if they feel much more fluid, let's say, to dynamics. You know, it's like very dynamic, very like unconstrained, unbounded. If they feel like maybe intractable because of that.
Okay,
Maybe
so
that's go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
No, maybe that's why we search for like simplicity, is because literally everything around us is just like yelling, you know, complexity, multitude, no, multiple components, difficult, hard, you know. But sometimes the hard things are better. Like, it's funny. Like he used that example. Charles used that example about the electric bikes. I remember my first time using electric bike. My brother-in-law Isaiah brought his electric bike. I never really ridden one before, and I got on that thing and went off road. And I did a lot of biking as a kid. I mean, a lot. I didn't get a car until I was engaged to Lana. Like, I'm like, I guess I'm getting married. I should probably get a car. But I just rode my bike everywhere. I loved it. I had a road bike and a mountain bike. Loved it. Anyway, I rode that thing and I'm like, I am freaking Superman, you know, like, cause you do the pedal assist and it just feels like you're just flying. It's effortless and it just feels amazing. And then it broke. And I was like, you know, at that point, I think it was like 5 miles away, and I didn't know, but there's a wire that off road, it shook loose, and I couldn't restart it. I couldn't get the thing. Now I've got a 60-pound bike that I'm trying, like, those batteries are not light, and I'm riding that thing back, and I'm like, well, maybe I like the simple thing better, you know? Like, I think maybe this is not all it's cracked up to be. And I think there is a way where you can kind of create, in the pursuit of, what was the definition? In the pursuit of something that is easily understood or done, you actually create more difficulty for yourself than you would if you just would have, you know. I often say to my kids, the hard way is the easy way.
Yeah, I love that.
Hard but better. And maybe there's an element of that in all of this too.
Okay, one more final thought. So in aircraft design, flight dynamics are super complex. This applies to all sorts of things, but I think of it in this context because that's where I spend some of my time. Flight dynamics are super complex, and you can spend a lot of time and energy and resources simulating the true physical phenomena that happen in flight. So it's like full-on computational fluid dynamics, right? To really understand the details of what happens in flight dynamics. Another thing you can do is look at analytical solutions. And an analytical solution will get you to an answer that is often within like 98% of what actually exists in the real world.
Explain what an analytical solution
analytical
is.
solution meaning
like empirical
an equation.
observation?
No, analytical solution is a well-formed equation that describes the characteristics of some behavior. So,
but it's not perfect. It's not
perfect. It comes with assumptions. You have like, you can take like F equals ma. You can explode it up to describe the complexities of reality, the actual complexities of reality.
So like, F equals ma is force equals mass time acceleration. Like, that's a foundational equation in physics. And what you're just saying is like, when you explode that to the limits of all the details, it like gets crazy town.
And it's hard to compute and process, whatever. But then you can start making some assumptions, good assumptions. You can cross out terms. You can simplify this into an analytical solution that a computer can do math on very quickly, right? And so you can take this analytical solution, and instead of running full-on CFD, computational fluid dynamics, which is very complex and heavy on software, you can like get an answer in. You can do it manually. You could do it with a calculator, but you could also do it on the software like really, really quickly. And that answer will be within 2% of reality. So you're missing, you're off by 2%, but it's really close.
You're wrong, but you're close enough.
Wrong. You're making some assumptions and it's wrong. The thing with analytical solutions is you have to be aware of your assumptions and be confident that those are good assumptions to make in whatever environment you're trying to apply this analytical solution. The point is that these analytical solutions are actually fairly simple compared to reality, but the simple nature of that analytical solution is sufficient. It's sufficient to do the vast majority of projects, right? You can design an incredibly efficient aircraft, or like you can size structure for an aircraft with analytical solutions only, and you're going to be good to go. You don't need the complexity.
You won't have laminar flow over the fuselage, but you know what? You're gonna fly.
You're gonna fly. Anyway, so I just think there's something to like what made me think about this is your idea of like good enough, right? You know, approaching and fit, like it's good enough, and maybe that's what life is. Complex life. Life is by nature complex, but there are some principles, the analytical solutions of sorts, right? There are some principles that when applied to life, simple things,
simplified
things, it's like it's good enough. It doesn't capture the complexity, but like this principle, it's like if you do this thing, if you live by this thing, it's good enough, and you know, things will work out despite the complexities of life. I don't know if that works in my brain.
I love it. I feel like this is like, it's funny how with technology and engineering type disciplines, you so quickly get philosophical, right? You like, when you really start pushing your thinking or pushing your problem solving or pushing your solutioning, you quickly get to this like deeply philosophical place. Like, what matters really? What are the levers that really govern the output of this system? And you start finding out. My favorite ACM article of all time was Alistair Coburn's, you know, considering people as the first order nonlinear components to software engineering. In other words, it was a long name of saying like, basically none of your fancy pants processes matter. It's just all about the people, and the people can work in a terrible process and do a good result, or they can work in a good process and get a bad result. It's just all about the people. That is like the basic gist of that. And not that processes don't matter or priorities in your, like, because they do. You can really help someone, guide them down the like more garden path for output, but people really matter. And that's like a deeply philosophical thing, right? Coming out of this like ACM paper. Anyway, fascinating.
Love
stuff.
it.
I am glad we had this discussion. I'm glad Charles was able to join in.
Likewise.
This has been a wonderful, wonderful discussion.
This has been a bonus section of the Build Different podcast. Come back every Friday for the podcast and bonus sections occasionally. All right, David.
See you.
Thank you, sir. We'll see you.
See you.